Okay, so in this video, I'll walk you through how I prep for my sessions, how I upload content onto my instructor board, how I sort of set everything up, the essentials. So here, first things, what I'd like to do, I've got a blank board here. I might go to settings, and usually I leave the screen size as default, which gives me the maximum amount of space to work on. But I rarely use all of the space because I could go to the next page. So I'd usually only use maybe maximum 50% of the space on each page to minimize clutter and not to overload too much information on one page. So I wouldn't necessarily need this, but I just keep it in default. I don't want to mess with the screen size. But unless I have a specific use case, I might set it to A4 if I'm getting my student to do an exam. So I want to replicate the A4 paper that they'll be working on in real life. So I might make sure that the screen size is A4 so that whatever I upload, the student only gets to work within that constraint. So that's just to replicate exam conditions. Otherwise, sometimes I might choose a different screen size if I know that the student is using a smaller device. For example, an iPad or a smaller laptop, I might set it to iPad. Now, why that's useful is because it's easier for me to communicate different positions on the board. So if I'm referring to the top right corner of the board, since the student is also using the same screen size, they understand immediately which position I'm talking about. If you're on different screen sizes, that can be confusing. The student may not even see it unless they scroll. So having it on the same page minimizes the confusions. Apart from that, that's what I do there. Apart from that, I also like to adjust these settings. So if my student is a young kid, maybe primary school, I might not want to overwhelm them with all the tools here. So I might set it to simple tools or very simple tools. Because usually a primary school kid only needs the basic tools. Or even sometimes if there's a student who's joining in is new to the whiteboard, I might still go with simple tools so that it's easier for me to give instructions about what are the essential tools without overwhelming the student. So it's easier to give instructions on what tool to use rather than, making things complicated. So that saves time, especially reducing the learning curve in your first session. You don't want to spend more than 10 minutes just explaining what the tools are. So yeah, I might do that if it's a new student. But generally, okay, I'll leave it in default and I'll save that. Okay, perfect. Now, the important stuff, uploading content. So you can go to upload option here and you can upload files from your computer. Usually it could be PDFs. If you're uploading photos, images, you can do that from here. Let me just try and upload a PDF of a lesson. All right. So it may take a while based on the number of pages. There you go. So each page on your PDF appears on a single slide automatically. It'll be assigned to each slide on your whiteboard. There we go. And if you feel like the size of the pages are not enough, you can, just like with an ordinary object, you can adjust the size. So if I want to enlarge the page so that it's easier to see and work on, I might do that. So you can set it up like that. Apart from that, when it comes to images, usually if I have the image in file, I'll do the same thing. I'll upload just like I did here. But what happens usually is I would do a Google search. And if I see an image that I want to use, I'll just copy image, and just directly paste it using Ctrl+v shortcut. Ctrl+v and that should bring it onto the whiteboard immediately. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So that, again, like an object, I can resize it and place it onto my board, instructor board. So I don't have to download and upload. It's just one step. I copy and paste. I also do this with screen grabs. I take a screenshot and just paste it onto the page I want. So that's just a convenient thing for me to do with images. Apart from this, what you might want to do is include, okay, you can also have a look at all the pages you've uploaded. That you can do by going to thumbnail view, and you can see all the pages that's been uploaded. So now let's say here's page 4, here's page 5. Let's say you want a page in between, maybe as a transition slide. So you can insert page and then create a new page. So maybe you want to do some questions and then introduce a new topic. You want to explain it. So you need a blank page in between. So there you go. And you can, create your material here before you go to the next page. Sometimes you want to delete certain pages. So let's say I want to delete page 2. You can delete that as well. Okay. Back to page 1. Okay. Now, what else? So let's say now you want to include grids. So there's also other option on this toolbox called grids. Click on that. There's a lot of options. Let's say you want a grid like that. The entire page becomes a grid. Maybe useful for primary kids when you want to make it easier for them to draw straight lines, keep their digits into a box to make things neater, to replicate their actual book. You might want to do that, or various other use cases. And then apart from that, you can also use the big grid, very obvious. I also tend to use isometric grid when I work on 3D diagrams, isometric drawings. So it's very convenient when I have it like that. There you go, a cube. And apart from that, you can experiment with the other things here. You can get graph papers. Now this is important, right? Graph papers, what happens here is you can't really move that. It's in a fixed position. You can't resize it or move it like you could with these objects. So when you get a grid and you get graph paper, you really can't move it. It's fixed in that position, right? That can be inconvenient because you might upload a PDF and you want your graph on this side. Well, there is a different option you need to use here. So I'm going to go to grids, clear grid, and get rid of the grid. And then here you would use this tool called grid box. So you would be drawing a rectangle, the size you want your grid to be, and then getting your maybe graph paper, for example, and there you go. And once you placed it, again, you can't move it, but you have it in the position that you placed it, right? Another problem with this is, though, now that you've added a grid, if you wanted to add a second grid, you can't really do it. So go to grid, grid box, and let's say I want another grid here, a graph paper, for example. Notice how the graph on top disappears. So for each page, you only get one grid, right? Which may not be great. So there's a workaround that I do for this is I take a screen grab of this graph. I copy it, and just like I did with images, I would paste it, and then there I go. I get a clone, and then I can keep cloning this to anywhere I want on the page. So yeah, you can get multiple graphs that way. So that's, although the tool only allows you to have one grid per page, you can take a picture of it, a screenshot, and then paste it to get multiple grids. That's a workaround that. Then let's also look at what else. You can also, there are some tools here that are not that are kind of glitchy. For example, the coordinate plane. Let me try and set it up. So this, notice how it's kind of distorted. If you look at the numbers carefully, you can see the 0 is popping up all the way here, where it should be here. So I try and avoid this at all costs. What I do instead is get the grid box, draw it to whatever size I want, set up my graph paper, and then, I'd have to do the work of splitting it into axes and dividing and marking the divisions and so on. And so these are the general things I do as prep in uploading content, creating the grids, and so on. So yeah, in the next video, we'll look at other features available in Whiteboard.chat.